Well, 2007 started exactly the opposite as 2006 ended. Had a little bit of rain come through, not a little bit, a lot. Temperatures dropped way back down. I'm surprised it isn't snow. Luckily it isn't snow. And we really had this last 2 or 3 months of the year of 2006 just incredibly flyable, I guess is the right word. But now we're kind of landlocked. And we have a day of rain, predicting a couple days of rain. We're going to do some work on Jose Modesto's motor. Now, in the last session we had, we really accomplished quite a bit. One of the things we accomplished is, this worked out great, by the way, this little gizmo for the tail weight. And of course, if this was a contest plane, we'd want to make a little hatch or put solder on a tail wheel or whatever. But we have now finalized what I like for a CG, and that's basically 2 of these pieces of lead, one on each side of the body. This is what I prefer, and when Brian flies the plane, we just get an Allen wrench and take the weight off. And then we both use exactly the same handle, so that kind of works out well for us. Now what we have as a project today, 2 things actually we have 3 things. We have a bunch of wooden props that Rich Oliver sent. We also have Jose Modesto's Jet 76, and since he liked the way this engine ran, the combination of Venturi, head shims, and we want to test Rich Oliver's the latest header that he's making for the 76s. So we're going to try to do all 3 of them at the same time, again, because we're not, believe me when I say it, we're not going to have a lot more flying weather once that rain turns to snow. But we're stealing every day we can. That's the whole secret here, is we're not letting one day slip away from us. And I could have worked on a 90 ship or whatever all this time, but then what would happen is I'd be done with the 90 ship and it'll still be winter. So we're going to get back to working on it as soon as the weather really goes south. But any other days we can squeeze out of this, it's going to be a freebie. And we're really taking advantage. It's like going to war with the Stregas you have. So step 1 is going to be to just carefully take apart. And what's really nice about working with this plane is how quickly, and I've kind of timed it, it's ridiculous how quick you can get the motor in and out of this plane. Now we know one thing we hope is going to work out to our benefit is we really have closed in on the tank shim. Tank shim is real good, so we'll be able to pass that on to Jose once we get his motor dialed in. Now the difference in the motors is, in Jose's case, it may make more power or less, but he liked the way this one ran with this prop. Well, the easy way to do this is to take, except for the header, because I want to test the header, take all of the hardware off of this engine, the spinner, the prop, drill his Venturi out to the size mine is, and take this header with us. So if there's some variance and some head shims, but we'll have a tuning day at the field. But maybe we won't even need it. Maybe Jose's motor will run better. You never know. And we'll be able to, we know we get plenty of mileage out of this. This runs 30-35 laps after the pattern on 6 ounces. So even this motor is set up very mild, very mild. So we're going to try to, in the case of doing this, the idea is to learn something that we can put in the bank too. Now, one of the benefits of the ARF that I really like is how quick you can get in here and work on things. And we got the motor out, wipe some of the little schmutz that's off it, and if you take the pads out now we know the pads have very close to and it took us a long time to get this right, so I don't want to change this. Well, it'll be interesting to see if it's going to be exactly the same for Jose's motor too. Now, I'm looking in here, and this is really pretty dry. There's really not a lot to clean up in here. And I can see one thing right here where the filter is rubbing on the plywood. That's what that's all about. I want to monitor that in the future, make sure I'm not rubbing some part of the filter rubbing on there. But other than that, the tank doesn't even have any schmutz on it. And we're going to have to, first thing, I'm going to have to set up Jose's motor. We're going to have to open this up a little more because Richard's header is just a little bit longer. Now anytime I take the powertrain out of the ship, I like to look for a lot of little things. First of all, any leaking by the front bearing. Obviously this is not leaking. The header, I try to snug up the bolts. This one, there were a couple of, in fact you can see there's a couple of drops on the header here, which is making me think maybe I need a new gasket, the copper gasket, but it's been on there for a lot of flights. There's no leakage at all anywhere around here. So even after all these flights, there's really not much to like here. Now, one of the tests we did, this has a 215 Venturi. I put the black air filter instead of the green one, just to let it use up a little more of the fuel as we were flying. We were getting 35 laps at the end of the pattern. So it's telling me I possibly could go another 5,000s on a Venturi. Maybe next time we experiment with this motor, we'll run this up to maybe 220. Then we can always back it out with some pantyhose. And that's one of the things Rich Oliver has improvised. Other people have stolen his idea, but for sure he's the one that improvised it. So we know that this is the package that we want to set up for Jose. We want to set it up very similar to this. Okay, this is the header that Rich sent. This is the one he's manufacturing now. And this is the 90 size diverter. Now remember, when we had the 60 size diverter, was too restrictive. This is the 90 size, the biggest one, and of course we need to put a zip tie on there when that ultimately goes in the plane. And you can buy this. See, the idea is the custom header, you have to have Scott Dinger do a welding job. You need a piece of tubing, a little bit of machining involved. Also, we found that machining this header saves some weight. We also can get rid of that little piece next time we have this motor apart. I'll just think about if I want to do that. We did that to the 90 already. It was no problem at all. But for right now, this is an ARF. We're trying to keep this. We're trying to keep two things, that you can buy these parts off the shelf, and this you can buy off the shelf. So by having Jose's motor, which is an off-the-shelf motor, we're going to open up the Venturi, maybe or maybe not put some head gaskets in it, put on a stock exhaust, and the prop right, and I'll take the spinner right off because I need a lightweight spinner, and I only have that one cone finished yet from the production run. So this will allow us to really do several tests if we get one of those miracle flying days. Now I bagged up all the parts that came off of Jose's motor, because here's one of the things I can't use. See, my spacer is lightened, number one, and it's made from one that's a little bit longer than the stock one. This is some kind of an old-fashioned version. And the reason I had it is so I could space the spinner a little further out without having a washer. So this, for sure, I'm just going to return to him, and he can, if he wants, I'll machine one up for him. But it's better to build a plane with the stock one. Now, I had this in a Spitfire, where this was a necessary evil when I retrofit that plane. So we'll return all his stock parts, and by the way, this washer should have been knurled. I ought to knurl that for him while it's in my mind. Now that's the knurling that I like to have on the washer. No matter what nut combination you're going to use. That's something I really feel strongly about, because I don't like to see a prop come off. Now, here's one of the things I'm going to try to do as summer, I'm already thinking of summer. We already have people, Ron Merrill happens to be one of them among other people that I can think of, that want to buy a 76 as soon as the next production run is done, buy the header, buy all the hardware that they intend to use, have me break it in, bolt it together, and now that I have this ARF, it's a matter of 4 screws, go out and fly it, a gallon or so of fuel, get the plug of choice in there, get everything set exactly how it would work, videotape it of course, and send it back. And so I've been thinking about doing that for using the ARF as one of the other things I can use the ARF for, is my test plane. And Jose will be the first victim. This is the first. Well, we did John Cafaro's 76 in a Spitfire, but I hate using a Spitfire because I don't want to fly it in really crappy weather, or when the Eagles are out eating aeroplanes at the field. Now, another thing I've done is I've taken the glow plugs that have worked. I spent a lot of time fooling around with these glow plugs with 4-stroke Thunderbolts, volt and a half. Haven't found a giant difference, but certainly they'll give us a chance to check a couple of different glow plugs. And what I do is when I get This one hasn't been in a plane yet, so it's sitting loose. Once I have one that's been in a plane and run maybe a gallon of fuel and run well, put it in this bag. So I have a choice. These are plugs. I know I'm not going to have an issue with plugs the day we get out to the field, because I don't care how much time I spend in the shop. When I get to the field, I want to get flight after flight. Our flight time is limited. Now on a road jet, if you're going to use this piece, and of course, unless you machine some of these fins away, and I'm not going to be doing that on Jose's motor, I like to make the gasket on both sides of this, rather than trying to do it on the engine or on the header. So to do this, and this is one of the little tips, little tricks, whatever you want to call it, that seems to work real well, and keep the header from getting all full of black oil as time goes by. Now here's this material that Les Demet got for us. I think the source was Frank McMillan, but again, I'm not sure. We don't sell it, but if somebody would need a little piece, or they need me to just send me this and I'll make the gasket for them. This is the simple way of making a gasket. This is the easy way. This is a sticky back material. Now Richard doesn't even use gaskets, and I'm not sure, since I haven't done any without gaskets, maybe it'd work just as good without the gasket, but in the past we've always used the gasket. We always take this side, put a little piece of sticky back paper on a piece of glass and rub it until we get whatever little machining marks might be in there out. Again, I don't think any of this is critical. This is just because I like having a motor that's nice and clean. Now, once that's stuck on there now. Whoop, and this is a nice way to do it. Now you can take a brand new number 11 blade, carefully cut the holes out. Again, we got this material, I believe it was in a musical instrument store. They use it in guitars or in some acoustic place, and I see that we're running out of it too, so again, other materials I've used, that perfect green paper, don't work anywhere near as well. This is the material of choice. Or, as Richard does, you can just leave it ungasketed. But again, one of the things I'm kind of fussy about, and now you look in the ARF, and we're on somewhere around the middle of the 8th gallon of fuel. There's no oil seepage inside that, where the tank is and everything. Everything is just whistle clean. Now by pressing that down, now the last thing, of course, kind of hold the blade on a 45-degree angle, and you've got yourself what amounts to be a really nice gasket. And we have to do both sides, of course. Now Richard had given me a really good heads up, and I mean a good one, is snug these screws. Anytime this is a leaking surface, and I'm not a believer in that, like if there's a pinhole out here or in a tuned pipe or something, anything happens. I think that's just from people, that's a misconception, or people that have like old wives' tales like Mythbusters. One of these days we got to put it on Mythbusters. But anyway, the thing is to torque this down nice and evenly, a little bit at a time. The other thing that people have had whenever they've had an issue with this, they've somehow put 440 bolts. All of the bolts on a jet that I know of are 540. So in this case, if you need spare bolts, make sure they're 540 for whatever reason. Okay, this is equally torqued down now. I think we need a little zip tie out here for now. Get this put on straight. And again, this is the 90 size one. So you can see there's a tuning length here that may or may not come into play, but I don't think so. But another thought I had while I was looking at these is, if this one tunes at an RPM that we're not happy with, we can just cut another inch off, because we know this one tunes exactly where we want it to tune. And the thing is, these you can get one from Scott Dinger, but you got to make the part. So this you can just, turnkey stunt. Now the next biggest thing we need to address is the The Venturis. The Venturi is like the carburetor on a car. The bigger it's open, the more power it's going to make. But at some point in time, it makes too much power, radical power, uncontrollable power. And these motors are in a very mild state of tune, very mild. So we want to exactly copy exactly what we have here into Jose's motor. You know, I usually keep all my Venturi stuff in one bag, all the Rojet stuff. And of course, that's all we're dealing with in recent years here, even with the bombers. You notice what I've done? I've made one up that's, this one is too big. What does this one say? This is the Nats. At the Nats we used the 210. Well, it's nice to know this is the air filter we used on there. So I know which one I used at the Nats. But here's an easy thing you can do. If you have a set of number or letter drills, this is an easy thing to do. You can see what I've done. So you don't have to... These are the sizes, the common sizes that I've used. 225, 210, 215, so 205. So if I want to change one right at the field, I don't even need, I have my hand drill, the battery powered drill, I really can do it right at the field even. 199 is stock, and I know in the past when I've gone to 232 it's used up too much fuel. My tank wasn't big enough. So I can settle in on, we know the one in my motor is 215, and we know it's a little on a small side. We can make one 220 and probably be safe, but we'll go with 215 just because I know it's worked. And it's worked in this ARF, and it made about the right amount of power in the ARF with the 14.5 rev up. It was a good combination. That way I always test just to make sure I'm not forgetting something. I have the number on there. It's difficult to measure these with any kind of a micrometer, but I know that's a nice tight fit. So I know I have a 215. So I'll use this exact drill on Jose's Venturi, and I know it's going to hopefully be very, very close. Then the only thing we're dealing with is the head gaskets. Of course, we're going to use the same prop, spinner, thrust cone. The only thing that'll be different is the compression, and I can vary that with head gaskets right at the field. Now here's one of the tips, and this is from Rich Oliver, of course. There's a little seal in here. You really shouldn't over tighten this. You really shouldn't make it so snug that you need pliers to move the needle valve. So I'm going to be very conscious of that when I put this back together. Now a couple little tricks, and these are all from Rich Oliver. First of all, well, we want to press this out, but sometimes you want to, well, not sometimes, all the time, I want to mark this so this is facing right. I need a scratch on there so I know I've got the hole aligned. In times when the motor runs are erratic, this hole can be off and cut off some of the fuel supply. So that's a critical thing. Now the idea is to, if you look in here, I want to clean out any of the oil or anything that might be in there. There's a tiny hole that needs to flow fuel. So if that little hole isn't lined up correctly, you can wind up with crazy kind of fuel consumption. This becomes part of the needle valve restriction. Here's the biggest thing to convince people to do is go down to Sears Roebuck and spend $5 for wrenches or some amount of money. When you see people show up at the field, I'm going to change the Venturi. Oh man, it makes me sick. Okay, so now I want to know exactly where this hole is. So I want to put a scratch. I can do that with a parting tool. Somehow identify, so from outside the motor I know where that hole is going to reside. Well, it doesn't have to be fancy. I just took a Dremel tool, put a little notch. Now I know from outside the motor where that hole is going to reside. Now we know by doing it, and if you do it in a drill press, boy, you take so much problem of squeezing it and bending it, and it's just nicer to do it with a lathe. And to be honest, if you need one drilled out, send it to me, and I'm glad to do it now that I have a lathe. Now what we'll do now is very carefully get the air compressor pressure up and clean all the chips out of this. Now what I do, I try to mark this that it's a 215 so I can see it without having to check it at the field. Now another good tip here, another Rich Oliver tip, is take a little bit of oil around the O-ring, because you want this to seat nice as a press fit. You don't want to hammer on it or beat on it, and because it's such a tight fit, well, sure there's nothing in there. There, it flops right in. Now as I look down the hole, let's see if you can see, I can cover the hole up crooked. If I try to put the needle valve in there while that hole is crooked, it's going to be a problem. So I want to get it that it's perfectly, there we go, right there. It's pressed in and that O-ring is seated. Now because you've already got a little bit of oil in there, you can put a little bit of oil on the threads here, and I know we can line up our hole. I want that hole facing exactly forward. And I can take the little nut. This is where having those little wrenches really comes in handy. But I've seen so many guys, even guys in our club, they'd come over with a motor, they couldn't, but I can't get the venturi out, I tried vice grips. Now, you know this is going to want to move. So the trick here is to line this up where we want it. We want that hole perfectly forward, and of course when we're done we'll test it. Put a little piece of tubing on here, hold your hand on the outside, and make sure you can blow through there freely. Okay, now here's where having these wrenches really comes in handy. The one with the thin end, it allows you to see what's going on in there. You can hold that with one finger. And this is one of those feel things. You want it to be tight, but you don't want to strip the brass either. Now the last thing is, and there's a little seal in there. Again, you can see the little nylon seal. I take one drop of oil because I don't want to overdo it. And then I'll tighten this up just enough so it holds the needle valve setting. Now my experience over the years is to avoid resonance, you always make the needle valve as short as possible, unless there's a compelling reason, like you have this giant radial cowl or something. So I'm going to reserve putting a needle valve in here, and since I have a few of them, I want the needle valve to be just sticking out the fuselage enough. And since Jose is going to put this in the exact same ORF, we don't need to have the needle valve sticking out an inch. All that does is create a vibration issue. A lot of times a motor just totally goes crazy and you shorten the needle valve and it gets a whole lot better. Now this is the test to always make sure we haven't restricted this in some way down here. That looks fine. We got the needle valve just sticking out of the body just enough. We're ready to pull the hardware off the front of the engine and install it in the plane. Now I'm going to have to ask Richard about this thrust cone thing, because I have about 20 of these thrust cones for the bombers and machined up in various thicknesses and weights and to balance the plane. But one of the things I don't have is this one is longer than a stock one, and it's the only one that fits in this plane. So I'm going to have to just loan this to Jose for the test part of this program. Another thing we were really trying to do is get this whole system to work with a wooden prop, not a carbon prop, just because of the fact that it's an ARF and most people are not going to want to go putting on a $52 prop that basically costs a third of or more of what the ARF cost. So we've been pretty successful with that prop right there, which is a stock 14.5 rev up. But I still have a bunch of the wooden props that I'll test as soon as we get Jose's motor in the plane and running. Now I got Jose's whole motor put together, except I have to find an air filter. And it's really got a nice tight pinch at the top. Boy, that is just feeling like a killer of a motor, boy. Anyway, I'd like to get it ground run at least once, but it's pouring out there. It's got that little squeak at the top. That is a new motor. So we got the exhaust on. We'll get to test various combinations. All we need now is for the weatherman to smile upon us. I'm not holding my breath though. Now, of course, all that's left is to do the easy part. It's going to be to cut a little bit of this wood away. Let's see how much we have to cut away. Ah, almost nothing. We'll just get an idea where this is. It's going to end right at the black tape, where the tape ends. So I'll extend this little notch further back, just Dremel it out, roughly up to there. That'll allow me to put Richards and Scott Dinger's mufflers, and I can switch them. See, now I'll also have the thing of putting Scott Dinger's muffler on Jose's engine. That once I get back to the field and I'll have a lot of choices. And that'll be also interesting just to see if these both are going to tank shim out exactly the same. Interesting. I'm never quite sure of that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Again, a nice part of having an ARF. If we had a one of our higher tech stunners here, this would be a much bigger job. We'd be talking about repaints and refinishing, and what we're talking about now is a number 11 blade. And for people that are gonna, now Mike Cooper is putting a pipe in his. That'll be interesting. And I'm sure it wouldn't be a big deal to gut out the bottom of this and just keep cutting wood away, just like doing a sheetrock fit. Needless to say, I blocked off all the open tank vents so schmutz doesn't get in there. And what I think one of the things that I want to be real careful with this model, as well as any, is whenever I have it apart, make sure there's no little cracks or whatever. And this is a spot now that I've ground some paint away. I want to seal the edges of the monocoat and just put some paint in there, some Brodak dope. Because problem is once this stuff gets oil soaked, or you let oil get in here, now so far this has been pretty clean, but once it does get oil soaked, it's the one-way trip to Palookaville and it never gets better. It just keeps getting worse every time you fly it. And then once the vibration starts, the vibration itself then becomes the problem. So I'm being as careful as I can to keep. Now I've sealed everything in the nose. Every inch of the front of this plane is sealed with thin CA and at least one coat of paint up here. So, and especially if you have, like we've been making modifications to it, seal them with thin CA for sure. Because a lot of this model is made out of, it looks like a light ply, and it's a laminate, and the glue is that. The glue, it looks like the same glue that's in light ply, and once oil gets on that, it could be a problem. Well, all that's left now is weather, and maybe that's coming, maybe it isn't. Well, I'll keep the original, my engine, which has an awful lot of time on it. Keep that right in the toolbox during the next test session in case we want to compare apples and oranges, or Venturis to watermelons or whatever, but until the storm passes through and or we get some weather. Well, luckily we have a lot of shop work to catch up on. But boy, this ARF adventure has just been, there's not many things I put my whole life on the back burner for, but this certainly is one of them. Morning, I got this little package here from Richard Oliver. Some interesting things on here. These are some magazines, newsletters, whatever they are, from France. Control Line Championships, and because he's authoring, or editing I should say is the right word, Control Line World, these are some ideas about what I think maybe Control Line World will evolve into, something similar to this. And just look at some of the, well, some of the ways this is laid out, and I think this is really cool how they have, first off, they have contest reports with pictures from all over Europe. There's only one or two little problems. This is printed, and obviously I don't speak French. In fact, a lot of people don't think I speak English. In fact, if you look at these idiots driving through our circle while we're flying, I don't know if they speak anything from the planet Earth. Look at this Spitfire up here. Anyway, this is some ideas that may or may not work their way into Control Line World. This is from Gilbert Berenger, and of course he had the twin at the World Championships. And he sent me a bunch of these, and these are really cool. Now, I wish I had somebody that could interpret French for me. They're loaded with nice color pictures on the cover. And I hope we're going to see some, you know, some influence, some upgrades, whatever, as Control Line World goes from being a new publication to something that they get feedback from a lot of people, what they'd like to see, what they don't like to see. We get a 4-engine ship up here. That's pretty cool. But again, my only issue is it's all in French. It'd be nice if you could even have somebody just interpret this. Would be great. But hey, I even like looking at the pictures. This is talking about biplanes, something that interests me. Lift distribution. Anyway, I think these are pretty cool, and he sent a bunch of them too. I got one with Remy Berenger on the cover. Some nice pictures. Anyway, this is just some of the things that may be getting added to. Oh, look at this! Check this out. As I'm looking through this, love looking at this stuff. Check this out. He's got the world champion flying a Brodak Cardinal. Not a bad choice, Bibby. Anyway, why doesn't he let me fly his plane if he loves me so much? Anyway, what we've done, we have another unflyable day out there. This was from Rich Oliver, of course. And here's the biggest thing. I don't know when or how we're going to use this, but we got some of his decals. And in the next Control Line World is how to use the decals, how to make these yourself. Some pictures that he made of our trip, the Brodak vacation trip. But here's the thing I'm going to save these for. I like this. If I need to cover something up on a rudder, or somebody puts a scratch in my plane, Brodak R&D team, that's kind of cool. Anyway, if anybody wants any of these decals, they could probably purchase them right from Rich, or if you're ordering up a motor, get them to send you a set of decals too. Anyway, we got a ton of stuff to do here in the shop. Of course, we've been out orphing it up for about 2.5 weeks, and now it's time to pay the piper. And I want to thank Reuben McBride again for making me up some really cool little labels here. These, you can see I've already started to use them. The objective here is kind of to spread the word about that the ARFs were so long in coming, and now that they're here, and every once in a while I'll be sending a letter to somebody and they say, oh, the ARFs are available, like they don't know it, like they don't have a computer or whatever. Well, or they don't look on a website. They are available, and I think this just a nice little advertising for anybody that wanted to have like a custom set of labels. And I know people like Ruben with the computer skills, this is no big deal. For me, well, you can figure it out. I get Ruben to do it. Anyway, want to just thank Ruben for making that little accessory in our shop. That was really nice. Among the other little projects we have to work on here, and this is a serious one, we have two people that are making ARF Stregas, and they want tune pipes. Mike Cooper wants the pipe with the bend in it. Of course, we have to dig out the mandrel. That's a special order item. And Rich Walbridge is going to be putting a tune pipe in his. And while I'm laying up those pipes, because we've already done that enough times, people are getting sick of watching me do it, and I'm getting sick of doing it, believe me. The questions that asked constantly. Now, we've been using these spinners on the ARF. We got the cones, unfortunately. The machine shop stuff is still out. Don't have it yet. And I finally got a DVD from Dorin showing how he makes the props. So what I'm going to do is tack on, and what I'm going to do, this, I already have his part of the tooling. I love to see other people's shops. Now, you know, from time to time I pan through my shop and I say, yeah, he's got this, he's got that, he's got this, yada, 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 yada. But I love to see other people's shops. I virtually always get an idea of something I'd like to add to my shop. Like when Warren Walker came by the magnets that hold everything on the edges. The magnets, what a great idea. I mean, this is one of those things that Warren told me, turn me on to, you put your tools back. Boom. Nice little organizational thing. And now that I have the lathe up and running, I got to make a similar thing for my lathe tools. So anyway, I'm going to tack on to the end of this DVD. And this DVD is probably going to run way over 2 hours because Dorin's tape is long, but it shows how Dorin actually uses one of these tools, and you can see he has several. He can do several at the same time. How he created his oven, and I helped him figure some of that out. Not that I'm trying to take credit for it, but Dorin is one of the people that I think really adds something to our event. He is very meticulous, very machinist oriented, and check out some of the stuff in his shop. I think you'll enjoy this little presentation from Dorin.
Yeah, anyhow, that's pretty much very simple. I'm not sure if I should. I bought it from a store in Rockford way back when, and it's not too expensive. It's just a $50 and it's a digital controller. It keeps the temperature within 1 degree from wherever you set it, and it works real nicely. And this is my contraption that I use for the ventilation to have it up and running. Yeah, there is still a lot of work to get this, you know, just look real good and work just perfectly, and you know, things change constantly. Work here because I'm not home all the time to babysit all this stuff here. What I usually do, I just go power on. This will turn on this plug, okay, and gives the power over here, okay, but this is not turned on. This will power my oven. This is the connection to my box to the oven, okay. So once I have this powered on, I have a ventilation here that pumps here outside of the room, okay. I said to preset time, I have the temperature set over here, and then the oven takes on, powers off, and as you can see inside of it, the fans are working. See that? And just they move the air inside. Anyhow, high tech, huh? Anyhow, okay. But so when the time is up, when the say the time elapses, like 2-3 hours or whatever you want to set it up for the time, this will stop. It's gonna shut down my oven. However, this will allow the power to come here, okay. When this is off, it shuts down the power here to my oven. However, my fan still has the power going on, and it continues. After the oven is turned off, this will continue to pump the air out of the house. So pretty much just that, you know. When I get home 5, 6, 10 hours later, you know, it's already fresh air inside of here, you know, so you have no problems of no major health problems of any sort. And this is the time when I get home and I try to get the props out and pull them out of the mold. So for the purpose of this start of the video, I'm just gonna show how I take the parts out, and you know, hopefully maybe you come up with some ideas to help me get this done a little bit better. Maybe it makes some improvements over what we already have. Okay, here you go. Let me put it on tripod and I'm gonna start doing this. Okay, Wendy, I'm gonna just start taking this guy apart and let's hope it's alright. This last prop I made, and you know, some of the screws I already released, and pretty much self-explanatory. First thing I do here, I release my plates. You see that? These are not touching the. They're not touching the prop anymore. And then I just take this apart. Okay, for most part here I just don't have any troubles. Just come out. Okay. They're already released. Just along the screw. This is why I need to be careful, because if this is gonna go, it's gonna tear apart the prop. It's not very good. Here we go. And there's the prop. Okay, this is what I'm trying to achieve here. I'm trying to minimize as much as possible this flashing. For most part on this propeller, this flashing is very small. I'm trying to keep all the fibers inside the prop. I don't want it to squeeze out. What happens when the top half comes down, puts so much pressure in here, some of it is gonna sneak in between this and that, and there's no way I can get around it for now. This is one thing I'd like to eliminate, and I cannot see how can I possibly eliminate it unless I make this out of a one-piece tooling. Probably make it like a master mold, very nice, done in CNC and everything, you know, and then copy it in fiberglass. and I have a nice, very thick core fiberglass with everything built in, with these pillars and everything built in, so I can squeeze them all together. That's the only thing, only idea I can come up with, because this is not that user friendly. And let me show you what I'm talking about. To clean up this is very much a pain in the butt to try to clean this up. And if I don't clean it, when I assemble it again, it goes farther and farther and farther away, and it doesn't keep shape or anything. So what I have to do, I have to clean up everything. I have to clean up these sides, and you know, all this mess in here. This is what takes most of the time, and it's just my part of enjoying it, actually, of making propellers. You know, I want to enjoy doing this. I don't want to fight it and you know, go crazy over it. And besides that, the better, if he's gonna do it better here, gonna hold the fibers inside, it's gonna have a bit better balance on the prop, a little bit better consistency. They're very consistent as they are right now, but you know, right now I'm shooting for the perfection. You know, I want to have everything done just to be just perfect, you know. And when I pull them out, so people don't have any complaints, anything, you know, just to say anything bad to say about my props. Let me show you what I usually do when I take a propeller apart. These are the screws. They hold in place my inserts, obviously. They're all interchangeable. Actually, in theory, you can say I don't have two props that are really alike, because all the inserts have like slight difference between them, but the difference between my inserts are just, maybe we're talking thousandths of an inch. Okay. And this is the extra epoxy. That's what happens. I don't have a whole lot. This is all the carbon that comes out of the prop. What's in here, what's over there. This very thin part, but that's just very thin part. Okay. So all the carbon stays inside. Most of the epoxy, however, that's extra in it, and most of it's right here down the center. And I'll show you how I make a prop later on when I'm putting this on the rest of this video, the other part, you know, when I make a prop. So these are some spacers that I made. Just use it like that to crack it open. Anyhow, these spacers give me the least amount of trouble. It appears that the steel is very good for mold making, because of it's very user friendly. It doesn't stick to it as much. Aluminum, oh, forget it. Aluminum, everything sticks to it. It's just so sticky, you know. It's just like, it's really a pain in the butt, you know. One of the mistakes I made in this mold, see, I put a relief in here, because this is actually the part that's actually touching. It's touching like that, but it's only this upper part. But the rest of the epoxy, you see, it whizzes out underneath. And what I do at this part is I just take this and try to kind of, I'm not sure if you can see good. See, I'm scraping it off, because this doesn't have any fabric to it, you know. It's just leftover epoxy. See, it's leftover epoxy, and if it doesn't have fabric around it, you know, it tends to break off. You see, it's just very brittle, and you just cannot pull it out. You know, just think about a message. So this is what I do. I ultimately do. Every time I make a prop, I have to take it apart, and I have to clean it up real good. Then what I do with all this is I made me an insert holder and just put them in here after I clean them up. So then I'm gonna take them out of here and wax them, and but that's on the next video or in continuation of this one, because right now I just want to deal with this taking apart of the anyhow. Bottom line, what I need here to happen, I need a better fit between these surfaces and the side of the insert, to have just almost like a watertight kind of fit, you know, when you go with it, it goes down like a piston, you know. Anyhow, I'm trying to eliminate this work. This is the work I'm trying to eliminate. I like to be able to pull the prop out, clean up the mold, and be able to put another one in there right away. I don't want to do any of this stuff, you know. Just the only way I can see it happening is just it's only if you make a two-piece mold. That's the only way I see it happening. Where it's stick like this, I don't have any problems, I don't care. It just snaps up, comes off very nicely, very easy, you know. But this, see, it's a bit harder to take care of it. That's good. That's not a problem. This side for most part doesn't give me any problems. But this part of the prop, oh boy. See that? It's almost bleeding there. This is really a pain. I really hate this part of it. Sometimes what I have to do, like in this case, you know, I just have to put some sanding paper on it and try to sand it off. Pain in the butt. This is a phenolic material. Some kind of rags with epoxy in it, and just they pack it together. That's all it is. Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you know, that's pretty much what I have to do. I have to clean up every little nick and cranny, every part, and just a mess. Okay, but you know, when you reassemble and put it back together, it's just very good. It's, you know, seems to be very consistent, and they do a great job overall. But you know, just this is the part that you spend. You spend about this much time every time I take propeller apart. You know, just been on a video for about 20 minutes now. Okay. And it's pretty much cleaned up. Now it's ready to receive some a little bit of wax, and I'm gonna make the next prop. Okay, tomorrow we're gonna get wax and prepare the tools for laying out the prop, and maybe a day after that we're gonna get a chance to actually lay down some props. Okay, I have a ring here. This ring is compressing the inserts. It releases very nice. That's one thing I really like about it. It does release very nice. But you see this? All this mess, I have to mess around with it all the time. But you don't lose a whole lot of carbon fiber. You see, it's very little over here, which is a good thing. It keeps the that just very little carbon fiber on the side, you know, just that's a good thing, because most of it's inside here. That's what I want to achieve. That's good, because I'm trying to put pressure in here so it doesn't allow it to slip out. This extra resin, extra epoxy, see, it all oozes out, which is exactly what I was trying to achieve. Anyhow, this looks real good. See, again, I'm looking to minimize this flash. I want to keep as much of the carbon toe. See, it's pretty thick here, which means some of it came out. This looks good. See, over here some coming out, but you know, anyways, this is what I would like to do, to have about this much. This is ideal, to have just a little bit. And what happens if you have just a little bit, all you do after you pull it out and release it, thick sandpaper. You swipe it a couple of times and it just falls off. That's it. That's what I want to achieve. Have minimal amount of work, so that way I can just pull the prop out, sand it a little bit, cut it to size, ship it right away. And then what I like to have this tool ready to go for to make the next part. I want to have a very quick turnaround, a quicker turnaround. Right now it's just a lot of work, lots and lots of work. Even at this level, see that? See how easy it falls off? It's nice. This is what I'm trying to get. But you cannot do it with this, you know. This you have to go on a belt sander and go nuts. Anyhow, I'm happy with the shape, happy with the quality, happy with the consistency. I'm happy with the finish. I'm happy with everything. What I'm not happy with is the amount of work that I have to put into it. It's a bit too much work, you know. I would like to be able to have a tool to make me one prop every day. That's my goal. And I cannot see it happening again unless I have a two-piece mold. Just a bottom and a top, and that's it. Okay, here we go. Prop making part 2. Well, what I do after I take the parts and after I take the whole tools apart, I have to clean them up, and I'm just gonna do a quick cleaning on a couple of them to show you what I do with them. Kind of like this high temperature wax, right? So what I do, just take a cloth, give it a nice layer of wax on it. And I do this on all of them. Since this is the only contact surface that I have with the epoxy and the insert, this is the only thing I'm going to put wax on. So I'm just waxing it like that. I go underneath a little bit too. Sometimes I get epoxy over there. Yep. Okay. Alright, and I'm gonna continue to do this on all of them. Screw, I cut the head off of it. Put it in the machine. I'm just putting this thing inside. Wax on, wax off. And I get a clean rag. That's it. I never had problems with these guys. They always relay this very nicely, so this is about one thing that works well. Thanks God. Okay. And I'm going to do this on all of them. Okay, by the time everything is being waxed, everything is prepared, all I have to do is just wipe them down and assemble them. And this is pretty much the assembly stage of the tooling. Okay, and there you go. Let's put one together. What I like to do here is I like to clean up the wax, take as much wax off of the part, just all of it, if all possible. I'm going to try to do a good job in doing that, because if you don't, you're just going to have a sticky prop. It's going to be stuck on the inserts, on the sides, everywhere, just a mess. Oh, god awful mess. It's a short story. When I first started to do this, I thought that if you put more wax in it, it's gonna release better because it has wax. It's like, yeah, sure. What a mess was that. You know, I think I had props that were sticking to the surface, and it just like, it was actually tearing laminations off of the top of the prop, and you can see like you were just simply tearing it, the layer off of it. Big mess. Okay, let's put one together. And okay. These are just some spacers that I have because my inserts were too shallow. So now I have to put spacers in there to raise them up a little bit. Otherwise the prop will be too thick. And just like swinging a bat. It's not doing nothing to it. Unless you can keep the weight down, which is not possible on these props. If you want to keep the weight down on these props, you must have you must have a very slender profile, almost like glider wing. And if you make them too thick, then they're gonna load up the engine quite a bit, you know. So it's a give and take, you know. There are all kinds of designs out there. If you can make a hollow prop, you know, that's something else. As you can see, I'm just wiping it as best as I can. I'm just going to put it inside. There goes one. This is so much time consuming. I wish I could just take the tool apart, take the propeller out, put it back together, wax it, eventually put some part all, something like that sprayed on, and lay down another prop. Something that doesn't take this kind of a time. I've been doing some work off the camera, so whatever time it's in this video is not really accurate. And anyhow, story of my life. There you go. And she goes. Number 2. Anyhow, tomorrow I hope it's a nice day outside. I'm gonna get my wife's car, and the reason why I get it, because I want to go in lunchtime and go out and fly. I just feel like going out and fly. I haven't flown in a while now. I'm just kind of tired. I want to do something else. I want to just relax, enjoy the hobby, go have some fun. You gotta have some of that. This is very important to take everything off. Just put lots of pressure in there. These aluminum inserts work pretty good, but they're kind of sticky. What I noticed so far is that the steel likes to release very good. And I'm sure if you polish it out, it's going to be even better. It's going to release it excellent. But there's a catch-22 with steel. It's pretty hard to manufacture. Because it's hard on the tools, it's hard on just about everything. It's not very user-friendly, at least it wasn't for me so far. You have to spend a lot of money tools trying to get things done, and I just don't have that kind of money. This is almost like a hobby. Just trying to make a couple of bucks to maintain my hobby, and it doesn't look like it's going to become a part of my lifetime anytime soon. Unless my sales are just increasing dramatically, which is not gonna happen anytime soon by the looks of it. Okay, putting a ring. I'm gonna try something new with this ring here. I'm not sure if I have, let's look at this guy. See, I'm not sure if you can see there, I have some dings in here. That's because of the ring is putting some pressure on it, on these corners. I'm not sure, see? These corners are putting dings in my plastic. So I don't really want that to happen. Let's see if this thing is gonna work. I'm gonna try to put a piece of phenolic underneath there, just one of these pieces of phenolic. It's nice. It makes a good slippery, good slippery shell, whatever you want to call it. And man, I tell you something. These guys are getting smaller and smaller every time you put them in a post cure. So I think what I'm gonna do with this, I'm gonna call it. Yep, this is half my problem. But what I noticed lately is that I get a bigger and bigger gap in here every time, and I say, man, what's going on here? I come to find out not too long ago, quite recently, that these guys are shrinking. Put them in a post-cure oven, you heat them up, they cool down. They don't have any kind of deformation or like warping or anything like that. They do not warp. So that tells me they are shrinking. That's the only explanation I have, because if you look at this closely, it's touching. See, right now it's touching right in here, this area over here is touching, this area over here is touching. So in other words, you cannot go this way and you cannot go that way. And right now I have a significant gap in here, in between my inserts. It's right in here, I can definitely see it. It's pretty big. In here, everywhere it's a big gap. So what I'm gonna have to do, I'm gonna have to recut, trim these guys out, recut them to the right size and shape to get a nice mating line. Oh, look at this. This one has a huge gap in here. And I can see it touching in here. I can see it touching over here on this side, so it cannot go any further out. So I'm gonna keep that gap. What happens, I'm gonna have a lot of carbon toe slipping going into these gaps and just really go out. I want to keep it inside the prop, so I'm gonna oh well, so much for this video. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to stop right here, and I'm gonna take all of this stuff and I have to recut it. I'm back. Okay. It's Saturday. I spent 8 hours at work today just trying to get these things settled down and fine-tuned. What happened is I've noticed that since I've been putting my tools inside the oven to post-cure the props inside the tool, so I keep a very nice shape to it. What happens? These guys were shrinking on me, and they shrunk and they shrunk and they shrunk, and you know, all of a sudden I have a gap in here, just almost you can stick a credit card into it. So, so I was losing a little bit of carbon fiber through that gap, and it was not, you know, it was making my life very hard to clean up the tool, and also was making my life hard when I was cleaning up the parts, the propellers, and do the fine tuning on them. So what I decided to go back to school to work, and I asked for permission, and they gave me the permission to do this. So here we are with the first product. What happened? I made these holes bigger, so I have more of a play in here. See, now I have more play, so I make sure. What happened before, I was touching here. I was touching on these areas, on the pillars, so you couldn't go any further to seal this edge inside here, so we just couldn't seal it. So what I did, I recut this hollow shape, I recut this face completely, which is touching this insides here. I recut the holes, I made them bigger so I have plenty of clearance, and well, they look real good. They look like it's a very nice match, a very good match to it. So, well, let's see what it will do. If it works good, it works good. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Well, I didn't lose anything. Anyhow, that's about it. I'm gonna wax these guys, all of them, and I'm gonna assemble the tools and get back to the video. Okay? Well, on the last one, just making sure I take all of the wax off of it as much as possible. So I'm just really rubbing it in. I'm even using this as a good spot to hold on it, so it doesn't slip out. If I drop these guys on the floor, they're finished, because the aluminum I used in them is just so weak. It's a 6061 T6 aluminum. It's very hard to polish, it's not very user friendly. Maybe next time when I do this, I'm going to use some aircraft grade aluminum, because it's just much easier to polish. It's more corrosion resistant. See, if you look at the surface here, see how the corrosion comes on it already. I mean, overall you can see by the shine of it, you know, it's a nice smooth surface, but you can see the corrosion coming on it, even though it's aluminum. Story of my life. So polish. This is going to be for a 3-blade prop. There goes one. Didn't have anything to fly. I didn't bring a plane with me. I was going to church over there, and you know, wanted to do it a little bit more. Go over there, have fun. Yeah, that's that. That's 6 of these. Well, this is good. It's all good. Clean the screws inside. Okay. I get the center tight. This one's tight, but not too much. This is another thing that I stripped one of these inserts. When I was tightening up the screws, it stripped the threads out. That insert was complete loss after that. Trash. Too fragile. I think I need some better material. Either make them out of steel, which is very easy to polish and it seems to last longer and be a little bit more sturdier, but they get heavy. And when they get heavy, oh mama, these tools are already heavy. I mean, I think they weigh about, I never weighed them, but I think they weigh 70 pounds or so, 60, 70 pounds each. It's a lot of weight to lift and take on a table and move it back and forth and shovel it around. Okay, here we go. Down with it. I just put them right next to the table. Lay them down. Okay. Because I don't have a table that's big enough, it offers me enough space to go around and spread out. That'll be nice. But this room is very limited in size. Okay. Problem fixed. So much thought I went into making this tool, making everything to get up and running, make it work better. When I first started to do this, I was just putting the carbon fiber, lay it inside, and just take a brush and go dabba 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 like it. And it worked good, worked fine, but it's not, you know, for that time I guess it works fine. Because I don't really like the way it worked. And then I tried to find out new ways of doing this stuff, and as I was looking through the CST catalog, they were showing some carbon fiber mats that were being pulled through the rollers. They were going through a bath and in between some rollers and stuff. I said, hey, that's an idea worth looking into it. And I just went ahead, I took that idea and ran with it. I was thinking, how can I get my stuff easier, you know? So I said, if I take my carbon fiber through a bath of epoxy and squeeze it out somehow, it's gonna work good. So I went through a couple of revisions, try this, try that, you know, all that stuff, and pretty much this is the best I could come up with. It works good. And actually on the last run that I make for the day, I leave the epoxy in here because it's kind of tough to clean it up in there. So this is all it takes. Cleaned up. Now I have to clean this area out a little bit. Nothing major. And it seems like this guide says user friendly as you can get. It's not going to scratch the surface, and that's what I'm most worried about. That I don't scratch the surface, because if I scratch, it's going to start to take fibers out of there. Okay. Obviously I wax this before I start working with it. See, the problem with this stuff here is, so see that? The problem with this, when this is staying inside of a cloth or fabric or something like that, when you peel it off the mold to make like an elevator or whatever, a fuselage, you know, it comes off because it's embodied inside. But when it stands by itself, it's cracking, and see that? And you cannot peel it off like you usually do and keep them all good. This stuff you have to clean it up every time. And I'm willing to live with it. It's fine. Just takes a few minutes. Type engine. And I don't. Okay. hard to do this with one hand, you know? Okay. So spring loader. Okay. Something like that. This guy is going to get a rubber band. Well, here we are. We're just about ready to go. The tool is assembled. You just put them, stack them one on top of the other one. And I start with a 2-blade prop because I want to let it cure a little bit and take these big clamps off of it before I put it in the oven. I don't have room for the clamps. The clamps are too big for sticking them in the oven too. So I need to let it cure a little bit. And actually this is the only prop that I'm going to put a heat gun on it to heat it up a little bit, so it's going to cure a little bit faster. I need a little bit faster cure for this one. The rest are fine. They're going to cure inside the oven. And temperature, all it is just more like a catalyst. It's going to make it cure a little bit faster. Okay. Now here I have everything I need to mix up my resin. Okay. In this bottle here, put a little hole on top of it, and I just squeeze it right out of the bottle. This is the hardener. It's Epicure 3234 curing agent. This one I'm gonna pour it inside here, maybe medicine kind of thing. I'm just gonna take some of it out and drop it right into the cup with epoxy. What I usually do, I set my scale up. First of all, I calibrate a little bit and putting all the cups that I'm going to use in that session. Make sure they're all the same weight, and also make sure that the scale zeroes out. Then what I do, for example, on a 2-blade prop, I only need 31 grams of resin. So I just set up to 31. I put the resin out until it starts to balance out a little bit. Most of the time I go past it, but it doesn't matter. So then I check it out, I zero my scale. Let's say it's 34 grams, and it's perfect now. It's all balanced out. What I do here, I do my calculations. Say 34 times 1.16 equals, so it's 39.44. So what I do, I come back here, put 39.45. I mean, you can't get much closer than that. kind of hard to try to get it. Well, as long as it is somewhere good, you know, we should be good to go. And then what I do, I take this hardener, go tick 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 until it balances out. And this is very good for it. It's excellent. What I found out is this hardener here, it's water soluble, which means you can wash this with water when you're done. But you have to be careful. What I like to do, I like to put inside the sink. I start pouring water on top of it. I take it apart like that, and I let the water just go on it for about 10 minutes or so. And I don't touch it at all. By the time most of it is gone, it's fairly safe to handle at that point, because it's so diluted, it's just traces of it anywhere in the site or anywhere close. So I wash it out, it's good to go, and then I let it dry by itself, you know, and here we go. We're good to do another one. I've been using this technique since one of my first propellers that I've done so far. I was even considering that I may have to buy one of these for each time I make a prop, but, well, I got lucky. What can I say? I didn't have to. Anyhow. Alright, here we go. One of the first things I did when I was using this type, I just have it standing up. And it was coming from around. But what was happening with this, it was twisting. It was twitching, actually. Twitching like that. And then I had a tough time when I was pulling it through my system, right? Because it was coming out in here, and it was like that all of a sudden. and I had to untwist it, flatten it out, all that stuff, just big mess. So what I did, I just made a couple of caps here, these guys, made out of some kind of a plastic, and yep, this is a cap. Don't you hate it when it does that? Anyhow, so I made a couple of caps. I put it on a base, a piece of plywood, drill a couple of holes, it stays there for, for as long as I use it. One thing I need to be careful about, if I put one drop of epoxy over this, it's a big mess, believe me. Okay, so it comes up here. After I have my cup ready to go, I just grab it, I put it in here. Kind of worked nicely. I didn't plan for it, but it works nicely. I can just leave it in there. It's gonna keep on dripping out of the cup, everything out. Everything is gonna go down in here. Okay, so now I have epoxy, comes in. This works as a squeegee, has quite a bit of, it's a very strong spring pressure. So it squeezes out all the excess epoxy out of it. Hopefully, in theory. Famous last words, okay? And I just pull it out here, and you can see this is the 0. It's where my scissors is cutting. So if I want it to be something at 11 inches and a quarter, I just put my scissor in here, cut it. Well, guess what? This piece here, it's 11 inches and a quarter, exactly. Okay? Alright. Now here I have a couple of things. This is a piece of plier with a rubber on it. This is what I used to grab it from here. Let me see what I'm doing here. Yep, hear it? And I pull it out. Okay, so I don't get my hand into epoxy here. Okay, so I grab it, I pull it out to whatever dimension I need. I set this aside, take my scissors, cut it. Then I grab my piece from here, come around, and lay it down inside the tool, which will be here, by the way. Well, it is there now. Anyhow, let's go back to school. Took some theory about laying up, making a mold. Okay. Before theory, this is what I used to mix up my epoxy. I guess 1 minute of this at high RPM is gonna be the epoxy gonna be mixed up better than I can do it with my own hands in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Okay, so this is a very good thing. The only thing about it, see, this is just flat. It's a flat piece. Okay, you don't want it to be like a propeller or something like that. If you want to make this, take a piece of brass, put it in a vise, squeeze it together. The vise has 2 flat sides, so you're gonna have a flat outcome. Another thing that you want to do to it, okay, on the back, see that? It will collapse unless you plug it a little bit. Put some plug of something, anything is gonna work out. Okay, so if you want, you can get a dowel pin. This is a 1/4 inch dowel pin. You can stick it inside, just put it inside and glue it in there, and then when you tighten up on this, is gonna work fine. I haven't found anything wrong with this yet. It's not splashing at all, like some people may think. It's not splashing at all. If you make it like a propeller, it will splash. Trust me, it will splash. But this, no. I just use it. It's inside the cup, right? And as I'm done, I just pull it out. Still spinning it, so it's kind of takes the epoxy off of it. But you know, then I wipe it down and it's good to go. Anyhow, okay. Some other tools I need on standby here. This is just a pipe wrench, a piece of pipe. Put inside the wrench, give it more torque, more leverage to tighten up things with it. This is another wrench. I'm using this to tighten up the rings around the propeller. Okay? So, everything is ready. Let's talk about propellers. The how-to. Things I've tried, things I haven't tried, things that work and things that don't work. Here we go. So I started to think, how am I gonna make my propeller? How will I lay it out? And I took a piece of carbon fiber and I measured it. And if you try to squeeze this in, put it in a caliper and see how flat can you get it. Over 375 thousandths, you go about 10 to 15 thousandths thick. So I took that in consideration because I have an airfoil on a prop, right? Say this is the airfoil, and I have a certain thickness to it. Okay, so I know that, for example, on a tip I can only fit 4 of these guys on the top of them. 4 of these guys, and I'm gonna have more than enough to go over this surface area here. 4 of these guys will cover this surface area actually, right? But then when you close the mold, you compress it even more and you get it even better. So what I did, I made my first prop. And I just I didn't care much of was it a good prop, was not a good prop, or just who cares, I didn't care. I think I even have it now somewhere around here. I kept it. I kept it in my trophies. Show and tell. Anyhow, it was a very flimsy prop anyways, but it didn't matter. Well, I just needed this. I needed some kind of a shape just to make a prop. Didn't matter. So what I did with that prop, as you look from the side, so this is the hub and this is the shape. I started to take measurements. Took a measurement here, here, here. Just kept taking measurements. Okay. You know what? I found to my surprise that every half an inch the prop is growing in thickness to about every half an inch is growing in thickness, about 10 thousandths. So if it was 40 at the tip, 40 thousandths, it's about 50 thousandths here. It's about 60 thousandths here, 70 thousandths here. So that kind of told me one thing. Say if I have 4 strands on the top, this is 4, right? Then here I need to add another one. Here I need to add another one. And as you count the thickness of this, it says 40 thousandths, 50 thousandths, 60 thousandths. I pretty much pack as much carbon fiber as I can possibly pack in there. Okay, and it keeps on going. It comes getting more and more. Of course, if you think about it here, the shape of the prop in this place gets wider, right?
Now, I really want to thank Dorin for sharing that. And as silly as it may sound, I really do enjoy seeing how people have made things over the years, and we've documented, just among other things, how we make carbon fiber gear, how we make carbon fiber tanks, carbon fiber spinners, and we're going to be adding to that with Dorin's technology of the props. But the biggest thing is when I start making these, and I haven't started making them yet, what I'm going to try to do is share information, see if I can come up with something that'll make Dorin's life a little easier. And I hope you really enjoyed sharing that, because that really is a very underappreciated part of our event.
I mean, everybody in their own way tries to add something to the adventure that we all have, that we all seem to share. So having said that, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Dorin, John Brodak, Rich Oliver, Randy Smith, Tom Dixon, everybody. Everybody, Tom Morris, everybody that's ever done anything to make the enjoyment of our sport better. And I think when you look at Dorin's DVD, I think one of the things jumps out at you is just how much work it takes to make a prop. And maybe next time you flip one of these carbon fiber props, you'll have a much better appreciation of how much work went into it.
Now again, thanking Dorin for sharing that with us, and the only thing I can suggest to Dorin, step one, lose the rap music and get some nice Ray Charles or something that we can all enjoy the music more on your DVDs. Anyway, see you on the next DVD, and we're hoping the weather's going to be better. Too, I got